how's it going, everybody? My name is Vic from the VDR podcast, and today is a business special edition. This is episode 3. And I like to do these things because, one, my co host, my brother David, we love talking about anything and everything, right? And kind of bringing some real life truths to it, entertaining it, laughing at it. But in these episodes, I'm kind of pulling back the curtain so you guys understand like what drives Victor, as an individual and my passions professionally. And so at heart, I served in the military for over 15 years, active duty in the Army, right? I was an officer. Now, but then I became an entrepreneur towards the tail end of my career. And man, let me tell you something. I found that it was my true calling this entire time. And so this is why I do these episodes. One, to help build other people's business, small business, medium business, large business, but also to pull back the curtains for you, the audience, to see like this is who I am outside of, being a family man. So today's episode is going to be specifically on what a real estate investor's journey looked like. And so this is, let's be straight up. It's like cutting a promo. One, I'm a licensed realtor in South Florida. Yes, in the entire state of Florida, I can practice real estate. Yes, I can. I do commercial real estate and residential. But today's episode, I'm not focusing on, trying to get you to help me sell your house or help you buy something or rent something. Today is about those people looking to take that first step like I did. When I was in the military, I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I actually have it right here. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That thing opened me up. I couldn't believe it was that straightforward. And then I started listening to something called the Bigger Pockets podcast. Brandon Turner is an OG. He was leading the podcast, and David Green at the time. Hey man, let me tell you, I went into education mode for a few months and I went straight into action. And what I learned as a real estate investor, every solopreneur who starts out early, you always want to try to do yourself, right? You're like, I'm going to do it by myself. I'm going to try to keep all the money, all the profit for myself. And let me tell you something, that is every rookie's mistake, trying to do it on your own. It is so important to find like-minded community, like-minded team members, collaborate, team up. Let me tell you something, you could do a lot. Let's say, this is a rough example. Let's say there's an office building. It costs $10.5 million somewhere in Miami. And you have to put 20% down in order to obtain a loan from the bank, which is still not bad. 80-20 is pretty darn good. But who has 20% of 10 million down? Let me just do some quick math because, I need a calculator for that. I did grow up in public school even though I went to college. A few $100,000, easily. Moving forward. Real estate investors, right? You want to start working. And this is me being 100 and real with you guys on the show, right? That's what I love about it. Because not everyone is a super hot shot mathematician, and I don't shy away from not using a calculator. I tell you that right now. I tell my kids all the time. I have teenagers and I have a middle schooler. And I say, guys, don't be afraid to use a calculator. Don't be afraid to use Captain Google to help you find these answers. Research it. It's not cheating. It's just using tools that are available to you. Anyway, moving forward. Real estate investing. So here is a good entryway to getting into the race of, let's say you want to buy your first project. You saved up, I don't know, 5 to 10 grand, or you somehow collaborated with a partner. You're somewhere in Texas, because that's where I started. I started my journey in Texas, and you find a house. And in this home, let's say you're a service member, like in my case. You want to use your VA home loan benefits. And so, let me tell you the story how I did it. I bought a home in Temple, Texas. That's Central Texas. It was about 35 minutes away from Fort Hood. I think it's called a different name today. I don't know. Anyways, and so we went ahead. I got my VA home loan, right? My first time I ever used it. And so when I got it, I literally had to put nothing down. And this is the only loan product, guys, in the United States of America that you don't have to put anything down if that's the choice that you make. Only thing I had to do is pay some closing costs, which includes buying a survey, paying a title company, some doc fees, taxes, things like that, right? That's pretty much normal in any real estate transaction. And so, but in this case, I bought a fixer upper. I bought something that I can live in. So this is like a live and flip. But my goal was, and with the VA home loans, it's like the golden rule. They say you at least got to be there for about a year, right? At least a year. And so I made this a long term project. So my wife, well, she was my fiance at the time. We had this fixer upper, beautiful, cozy house. It had lots of charm. Man, it reminded me of just throwback type style. Had original wood floors, fireplace, built-in shelves, and the dining room, some in the kitchen. You don't see that these days, right? But what we did was we renovated that house over a 12-month period. And a lot of times when you don't have the capital up front, it may take that long, right? So combination of ways I've did it. And remember, this is me as a beginner, right? So I had to start off trying to figure things out. Use your own cash. That's one option. Two, I learned something about credit card stacking. Using credit to help fund some of the renovation. But I say be wary, guys, because those APRs are very high. Sometimes the way to get around it is those introduction APRs where they're like 0% for 12 months or 24 months, and those are pretty good if you're able to do that. But other than that, just be very careful if you're trying to use a credit card stacking method to pay for renovations. And then that's all we did, right? So we purchased the home, Texas property. We bought it for 116,000. $0 down, just closing costs. Paid a couple grand in closing costs. So pretty much out of my pocket at closing was like 2 to 3K. And it was what a project it was. We made some connections with some local general contractors. To this very day, I still talk to them whenever I have anything in Texas going on. Miguel and Rogelio, man, those are brothers, and they always did right by me. Outstanding. And so we went ahead and we put an all-in upfront cost of about 15 to 16 grand. We turned a 2-bedroom, 1.5 house into a 3-bedroom, 1 full bath. Sorry, it was not a half bath in the beginning. 1 full bath and a half bath. So it was just one bathroom. So we added an extra bathroom, just a half bath. There's no half bath means there's no bathtub in there or anything like that. It's just a toilet. We had some laundry equipment in there, and their sink. So that right there was a big improvement. One, at the time we bought it, it was around the time where everyone was buying real estate, which was pretty good. About 2021. We bought that September 21. And man, let me tell you something. We sold it the following year, October of 22, and we went ahead and let me tell you guys. I worked a W-2, well, technically a contract job, but I worked for the United States government for my entire adult life up to this point. I have never made this kind of money in one sale before. And so we went ahead, we were all in 16K. We sold the house for over 100 and it was almost 190 grand we sold it for. It was pretty close to that. I just forgot the number, but it was close to 190, between 185 and 190. And man, let me tell you something. When I got that check from the title company after selling that house, I've never had a check that big in my life. It was like 60 something K at one shot given to me. And let me tell you something, from a kid from Paterson, New Jersey, it's definitely the ghetto out there. Lower middle class, hardworking family, blue collar mom and dad, working hard. And to get a check like that, and when I learned, like, wow, this is what happens when you invest slash sow 16,000 into a project. You watch your project. It's almost like watching a plant or a garden. And then your return, it was insane. That's one way of doing it. So we did pretty much, I did a live and flip. I lived in my renovation. And then when it was all said and done, that was the biggest check I ever made in my life. Thanks a lot to my then fiance, now wife. She really planted the seed in me to pursue anything like that. So let me tell you something. For men out there, if you want to take it to the next level in your life, it is so important to choose the right mate. If that's where you're at in life, you got to make sure you're choosing the right partner for yourself. Because if you choose the wrong partner, it's just opposition the entire way. And as an entrepreneur, you're already going an uphill battle. You do not want to make it an uphill battle at home. Promise you that. So our next project, man. So this was a super interesting one. So we were gonna get married. This is yeah, we did two projects in 2021. How about that? So we were getting married August of 2021. We decided to in our West Palm Beach house to renovate like the kitchen and the master bathroom. And the reason why we did that was because we're like, what can we do? Can we pull a HELOC in order to help pay for our wedding? Because, Janet and I, we didn't come from wealthy families, right? So we had to pay for our own wedding, man. If you want something special, you got to do what you got to do. And so we do this project. She spent the original house worth was about 160, right? She spends. I help her manage it with the contracts. Let me tell you, contractors are hard to manage, guys. That's why you got to have things in writing where you could pay them like per progress, like do a progress report to pay them that way, because it's definitely helpful that way. Because if not, you let a contractor go free reign, they're gonna run your money and take your money from your pockets, guys. Being a real estate investor, one of the key parts is understanding how to manage general contractors and doing it on paper the right way. Because a lot of these guys, they're so skilled at doing construction, but they are not skilled in business. And you need formality whenever you're dealing with dollars, guys. It's just more professional is the best for you. So going back on that, we learned a lot from that project, as you can tell. She put in, a couple grand, right? A few $1,000 for the kitchen, another couple $1,000 for the bathroom, the master bathroom. We went ahead. We initiated a home equity line of credit, very first one on this house, and we realized that the value of the house, what it used to be 180, now it was worth 315,000. And so that opened up so much equity for us to tap into. Right? I'm not accounting for, what she owed on a balance and things like that. It's like having your house as a credit card. And you have to be real strategic on how to use a home equity line of credit. It can give you some liquidity power when the right time calls for it. So, nonetheless, we did that project and it helped fund our wedding, which is nuts. I did the same thing with my vehicle. Same thing. It's not real estate, but I did it with my vehicle, and I pretty much did a cash out refinance on my vehicle, which I didn't know I could do that. But it's pretty amazing when you start getting educated on money, on how to leverage money, how to understand the money language, how to talk to banks. And it really these first formidable years of my entrepreneur journey really opened up my mind. Remember, guys, I was a kid from Paterson, New Jersey. I grew up in a low income neighborhood, low income city as a whole, lower middle class family, blue collar family, right? So all we know is work hard. We know nothing about money education, how to speak money, how to use it, how to, we didn't know. I had to learn this as an adult. So learning these things quickly gave me the power of my favorite word, leverage. I love the word leverage. So Second project in the books for that same year. We went on to do another project the following year, which was shoot, it was the third project of that year. We were closing on a house that we partnered with our a good friend of ours. He also was in the military with me. His name is Fernando. We closed on that house Thanksgiving of that same year. And let me tell you this. We bought a house in Killeen, Texas. We bought it for about we struck a deal for about 85K for a a 2 bedroom, 1.5 bath house with a large backyard and a big front yard. Nice little house. But let me tell you something. When I say we bought a fixer upper, we bought a fixer upper. And, as rookie investors, we were just freaking rolling I call it riding the real estate train at that time. As rookie investors, man, what I've learned from that project was sometimes you got to be careful on the level of project you take on and how much leverage you're going to use. What I mean by that, we got a hard money loan. That was no problem. We got the hard money loan. And we got the cash we needed to fix the house. But we hired a general contractor that would save us more money versus the quality of work. So we learned a big lesson. Sometimes going cheap ain't always better, guys. You just got to find a happy medium between high-end quality, cheap, but like solid. And so what we got was on the lower side of quality with that. And we learned a lot from that. So good old contractors, right? So everyone's it's a team effort. Whenever you're doing any real estate project, it is a team effort. But it is vital to hire good team members. And so the guy we hired and his whole team, at first we thought it was great, right? Because when you're green, super green behind the ears, wide-eyed, yeah, let's do it. And then we realized, man, we got into this project. Oh, it's only gonna be 12,000. We're like, heck yeah, that sounds great. And so we went ahead and we did it. Then the farther we got into the project, oh no, we need it needs to go up to 20. We're like, what? That's a big $8,000 increase. What's going on? And so the part of the reason is we took on a project that was too much for us in hindsight, right? But it was not impossible to do. We got through it. Then he did it a third time. And the third time I had to get like some kind of another third party to help do some electrical work. He took us up to 25K all in. And that superseded our budget. And we only planned for about 15,000. So we were 10,000 plus on this fix and flip. And so the moral of the story, you need to do your analysis properly in the beginning and do not over leverage yourself with a project that's maybe too big for you, right? So long story short, we finished the project fairly quickly. Obviously, quality was lacking, but it was finished pretty quickly. And so we attempted to sell it. It was spring of 2022. And we were selling it for about 160. And on that house and on that block, that was the highest number, right? I pulled those numbers because I knew, just based off the comparables and the level of quality, like that was going to be the only house that looked that nice compared to all the other houses on our neighborhood, right? And so I was pretty close in my estimation of the sell point, but we just could not sell. It took us like 90 days. We weren't selling. We were just eating. We were pretty much, remember guys, you still got to pay the hard money note monthly. And it was just so it wasn't working out. So what we did was we decided to rent. So we took it off the market. We rented it out to a two Army veterans who were a couple, and at the time, it was great, right? We assumed that just because they were Army veterans, oh, this is easy money. They get a basic housing allowance. We understand the system. We're still in the military at that time. This was a no brainer for us, right? Man, let me tell you this. It was, I call it tenant disaster. Why do I say tenant disaster? It was drama with those tenants. There was always something wrong. We had to come fix something. Eh, what I realize is now in the real estate game for years in, you know, if you own a property, guys, put in your lease agreements anything $100 or less is the responsibility of the tenant, so they could take ownership of the property they're using and trying to take care of it. We didn't know at the time, right? So we come in here doing a bunch of small stuff, and one thing led to another. There was a big giant flooding that happened in the garage. I mean, it was nuts, guys. It was just one of those property nightmares. We went ahead and finally, their lease ended a year later. We got them out. It was just like a rough. I only gave you like one or two things with those tenants, but moral of the story with tenants: screen your tenants, check their credit history, check like what type of debt do they have. There's some debts that is okay because life happens. Like if there's like a hospital bill, maybe student loans. I understand. But you're taking people on with bad credit card debt, collections. You're taking a risk by taking them on, and they're gonna not take care of your property. They're gonna ruin your property. So they ended the lease, and we had to come back in, and pretty much all the money we made on cash flow that year, we lost all of it. We had to dump like 5 or 6 grand right back into the property after they leave to get it move-in ready, which is it really pissed us off because we pretty much made $0 right at that point. We're back to zero, and we go ahead, we list it on the market, and we're selling it. And man, let me tell you, it was a hard battle, but we got it to sell for cash. We got a cash offer around I think it was a 145 cash offer. We pretty much, my wife and I, we lost money in that deal. Fernando lost, I think he lost some money in that deal. We all did. But the crazy thing is, obviously, in regards to that block where that property was on, that was the highest sale on that block, which is pretty damn cool. So I knew, like, I had it listed at 155. We got a cash offer at 145. So, I knew we were close at the sale mark. It's just, guys, when you're selling, guys, the art of selling is knowing the worth of your property and not just giving out to any old wholesaler or investor. You got to know your worth, because in the real estate game, not everyone operates with integrity or with ethical standards. And so we quickly realized that as young real estate investors, how crooked the industry could be because of like non-licensed people. And now I understand why, being a licensed here in Florida, why you go through all that education, all that regulation to be licensed, because everyone who's doing wholesaling, there's some good wholesalers, but there's a lot of bad wholesalers. They operate non-ethically. So cool thing is, we're able to sell that property, cash offer at 145. We got some money back, but not a lot. Definitely was a loss overall. But what did we learn about that project? We learned that sometimes cheap isn't always good. Just because it's a house that's less than 100 grand doesn't mean it's always good. Just because a GC is only going to charge you X amount of dollars isn't always good. So you got to vet your people, vet your vendors, check your vendors' work. Hey, show me your portfolio of work. Show me your past. Hey, who can I talk to as a client that you serve that will say an honest review about you? if these guys can't do that for you or gals, whoever company you hire or solopreneur you hire, you should you should definitely key that as a sign of maybe that ain't the one for you, unless you know their credibility very in depth. And when I was back a young real estate investor at the time, I was like, yeah, whatever, whatever. I was doing the whole I was acting like a teenager. You know, a teenager say whatever to their parents. I did that, right? Not heeding the advice of the seasoned players. And I paid the price with money. We lost money, a lot of money in that deal. So,
More of the story: cheap isn't always good.
oh man. And so my last story that I want to tell you about Texas, and this was a really feel good story. A really feel good story. So my wife and I were already married by this time, thank the Lord. And we purchased another home in Coppers Cove, Texas, which is really close to Fort Hood. And we rented it out. We actually bought it with tenants. We bought this property with tenants. It was a 1, 2, 3 bedroom home. It was a 3-1 home with a garage. Nice little home, quaint. We purchased the property. At the time, we used some cash we had in reserves to buy it. And it was so nice, right? So we bought this house with tenants, and we realized the tenants were the husband served in the army, and it was like an army military family, wife and kids, things like that. Let me tell you something. There is landlords love when you have tenants that treat your property like it's their own, and it's a very beautiful thing. I tell you that right now. This guy was so great. They were both handy. Like there was cases where I didn't have to send my contractor out there to do certain repairs because they were so good at doing repairs, and all I did was pay for it. I paid for the stuff and sent it to them to do. Yeah, there's some liability risk that you run, but the way to overcome that is you have them fill out, hey, you waive all liability against me as the landlord, and I had them sign a document just in case something went south. But these guys are willing to sign, and it worked for this situation. This is not for every situation, but for their specific situation, with their skill sets, their background, this worked golden for them and their family. So long story short, we were renting them for over 2 years. We were renting this house to them. And they were just amazing tenants. They've never owned a home. And when we decided to list the property for sale the first time, we didn't get any bites, so we took it back off the market, right? Because I put it at a sale price. I think we purchased the house at 102,000, 105,000. Remember, it's Texas, guys, so the house is a lot cheaper there. Different market. But we sold it at 150,000. And I think we came out of pocket like 20 grand or something like that, 25,000, something along those lines. And so with this family, I had a hard time selling the house the first time around. Then I decided to put it back on the market again, right? And the reason why I was doing that, I was offloading all the properties we had in Texas. I was offloading them. I didn't have the time to oversee them because I'm here in Florida. And so the cool thing about this is this family, I say, hey, bud, have you used your VA home loan before? And again, I pretty much did it for sale by owner. I was the owner and I sold it directly to my tenant. And my tenant said, yeah, I've never actually considered buying a home. I said, dude, you have to use your VA benefits. If that's what you have, you should use it. And so I went ahead, I literally, my wife and I, we had like a virtual meeting with them, explain what the VA home loan is, why it's good for military people, why it's only available for military folks, and the benefits of that, and how we benefited when we first started using it. And I went ahead and connected him to our local mortgage broker there. His name is Paul McCray, and big shout out to Paul McCray. The guy's a gentleman. He's been in the industry for a couple decades, and God knows what he's doing. And so the reason why I had such a good experience buying a house because Paul walked me through that whole process. Paul was very instrumental in educating me, and all I did was pretty much paid it forward. With obviously we gave Paul business again, and then number two, Paul treated these guys the same way he treated us, like a professional. Walked these guys right through the entire VA process, and it worked. That entire thing worked for this sale. It is amazing to be able to sell a house to people that you actually like. And a lot of times when you do, we've done a few buy and sells in our time. A lot of times you don't, you either don't know your buyer or you don't care or you don't like them. But these guys, we actually like this family. We really like this family. And so to sell a house to a family that you like, and for them to receive it as a treasure, like, wow, they're going to own a house. I could see these guys living there forever because they were like homegrown there. They lived there for, the most of their life. And so it was really rewarding selling a house to a tenant that treated this property great, a military vet, and a family that actually loved the property itself. It was such a great combination. The Lord blessed us with this combination. We made some really good money on that sale. I think we walked away 50, 60 on that sale. But man, it worked out really well. It worked out for us, and it worked out for the tenants who now are the owners of that property. And, the purpose of just a few of these stories is your real estate investor journey is not going to be perfect, right? You're going to take risk, but it need to be calculated risk. If you can't do it on your own, join a coalition. I like saying coalition because I'm from the military, but join like a partner or two or three. Be a group of 3 or 4, just 2. Depending on the size of the house, you don't want, too many partners because if it's a single family house, there's so many ways you can split the house. But for single family homes in particular, if according to the stories, maximum 3 partners is perfect. And so the moral of these stories is if you're on the fence and you're thinking about, man, I've been watching these YouTube videos, I want to jump into the real estate market. I don't know how to go about it, guys. I literally went from never owning a home, reading a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. This book was written decades ago. I don't know how relevant it is today. Maybe a lot of the philosophies are relevant, but maybe not the current information, right? Education, Bigger Pockets. If you are going to learn about real estate investing, listen to Bigger Pockets podcast. Those guys they're like the master degree level of real estate investing. They teach you in the very lamest terms. And then lastly, you got to take action. Don't get in paralysis analysis. Take some action, guys, because at the end of the day, you don't know what's on the other side until you actually take a chance. And it's going to feel scary. And it's going to feel scary signing a bunch of papers because I know it was scared the hell out of me. It's going to feel scary sharing all your personal bank information, all your personal credit information. It's going to feel scary. But when you start doing these things and taking calculator risk and you understand what the end looks like, because you have to, whenever you do a project, you start from the end, you work your way back. That's the way you go about it. But this is a series of special edition business podcast episodes I'm doing. The next 2 are going to be similar to the entrepreneur journey. Stay tuned, and thank you for listening. Again, you can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, wherever you listen to the VDR podcast. Go to our YouTube channel. We're asking you to support us. One of our big goals is to have 1 million subscribers. 1 million subscribers, and that's done in partnership with the audience. So thank you so much. Have a great day. See you later, guys.